it is estimated that a startling 1 in 6 of us will have experienced a common mental health problem, which, sadly, will only get worse in the current climate of fear and uncertainty. Globally, mental health and behavioural problems, anxiety, depression, drug substance misuse are one of the major causes of the overall burden of disease, impacting on our quality of life, capacity to function, and lead meaningful and fulfilling lives. According to the World Health Organization, major depression is the leading cause of disability worldwide and including a major contributor to the burden of suicide and coronary heart disease. While we continue to make significant advances in understanding the interrelated biological, psychological, and social determinants of mental ill health, equally, these advances highlight that much of what we know is what we don't know. In other words, it remains a very grey area. We don't easily tolerate the fear of not knowing or uncertainty. Grey, therefore, is not our favourite colour. We like black and white. We like certainty. This means that often we join up the dots in a haphazard way with misinformation. For example, think back to the beginning of COVID. Unfact-checked information ran amok, a so-called infodemic of misinformation, fueled panic and irrational behaviours. I think we can all remember the toilet paper fiasco. Likewise, in the mental health arena, misinformation feeds and maintains negative stereotypes built on myths and misconceptions that marginalise, alienate, and socially isolate. Since the onset of and social restrictions imposed by COVID, we can all relate to the negative impact of social isolation. It should come as no surprise then that many people with a mental health condition report that being discriminated against, marginalised and socially isolated can be a bigger burden and obstacle to their recovery than the condition itself. To avoid stigma and discrimination, it is vital therefore that we keep an open mind, keep learning, keep educating ourselves about mental health so that it becomes part of our everyday conversation, not something which lurks in the grey shadows of our minds that we either shy away from or are ashamed of. What then are the myths and misconceptions in mental health which fuel stigma? At the start of my career, some 30 years ago, I found myself on placement in the psychology neurophysiology department of Broadmoor Special Hospital, which housed notorious serial killers such as Peter Sutcliffe, otherwise known as Jack the Ripper, Ronnie Cray, the infamous gangster twin, and other less infamous but nonetheless dangerous individuals. Coincidentally, or not, both Jack and Ronnie were diagnosed as paranoid schizophrenics, tried for their crimes, but deemed not guilty by reason of insanity. Thereafter confined to and treated in the special hospital, as opposed to being sent down to serve a custodial sentence in a so-called normal prison. Priority, of course, must always be given to protecting the public from what are unquestionably dangerous individuals. However, our preference for black and white thinking means we often join up the dots in a misinformed way, painting an abstract picture that all individuals with a diagnosed mental health condition are mad, bad and dangerous. A picture often portrayed in the popular press and films such as Psycho. Who can forget Norman Bates or Hannibal Lecter, the deranged psychiatrist in Silence of the Lambs? Caricatures often reinforced by the use of derogatory language, such as monster, evil, etc., all of which work to demonise, stigmatise, marginalise and isolate. So what are the facts? Is this an accurate portrayal? Are all individuals with a diagnosed mental health condition mad, bad and dangerous, to be avoided at all costs? Of the estimated 7 million people in the UK with a mental health difficulty, 0.00007% will commit a homicide. And in these exceptionally rare cases, it's often because they have fallen between the cracks, did not receive either the right or timely treatment. The facts are, people with severe mental health conditions are 10 times more likely to be victims, not perpetrators of violent crime. The most powerful predictors for violent behaviour are in fact young, white male and under the influence of alcohol, so-called normal individuals. Related to this notion of normal, for those diagnosed with a severe mental illness, such as schizophrenia, we often mindlessly talk about, label them as a schizophrenic, which is depersonalising, dehumanising, and as we have seen, demonising. Contrast this with someone diagnosed with a physical health condition, such as cancer. We don't talk about them as canceric, which would wrongly define everything and all that they are as a human being. It is these caricatures, derogatory language, which must be challenged and broken down if we are to break the negative stereotypes, stigma, which leads to marginalisation and social isolation, while reaching out with compassion to connect with those of us experiencing a mental health condition. The second myth and misconception is mental ill health has nothing to do with me. One of the most frightening thoughts for us all is the thought, fear, that we are losing our mind. Not least because of all the negative stereotypes which, as we have seen, we attribute to the thought. It's less frightening to rely on our good old black and white thinking, categorising those diagnosed with a mental health condition, them, as somehow fundamentally, qualitatively different from us, or me, not diagnosed with a mental health condition. This gets us off the hook and provides some reassurance and comfort. However, because we are all made of the same stuff, it is a false split, a false dichotomy. As with COVID, none of us are immune from the so-called common cold of mental health, that is anxiety and depression. It is best, therefore, to think of mental health as existing on a continuum, where the difference is in the severity of the level of distress experienced and the impact on our day-to-day life functioning, our work life, our family life, our interpersonal relationships, etc. For example, we all know what it feels like to experience disappointment or feel a bit down, be out of sorts with ourselves and others. The so-called Monday morning blues feeling. There is minimal impact on our daily life. A cup of our favourite brew, in my case, skinny flat white, double shot, a bit of a moan and a groan with a trusted friend, and our mood quickly lifts. The Friday feeling. Contrast this with someone at the other end of the continuum, experiencing severe clinical depression. The feeling is pervasive and debilitating. Variously described to me over the years, like a red mist descending over me, a paralysis, an indescribable, intractable fear, terror, worse than terror, a living hell. The individual is unable to face the day, has little or no interest in life or living, nor can they derive pleasure from previously pleasurable activities. They are completely overwhelmed, helpless and hopeless. On the continuum between mild, low mood, and severe depressive states of mind are the so-called in-betweeners, those with moderate levels of distress. This group accounts for a large majority of the 1 in 6 of us who will experience a common mental health condition over the previous week. Notwithstanding, some of us will have recurrent episodes over our life course, it is important to remember that this 1 in 6 is not static, not the same person each week, but will rotate with the roll of the life dice, over which we have little or no control. Typically, therefore, the 1 is reacting to the inevitable and unavoidable, difficult and challenging circumstances and events that life throws at us. For example, in the UK after COVID lockdown. Understandably, the rates of depression increased by almost 50%, manifest by stress and anxiety. While the potential and fear of becoming physically unwell through COVID-19 infection was ranked lower than either psychological or socio-economic concerns. It is important to remember that mental health and mental ill health does not occur in a vacuum, but intersects with whatever is going on in our life at a particular point in time. Mental health, therefore, is everyone's business, and we are literally all in this thing called life together. Suffering is universal and must connect, not isolate us. So on World Mental Health Day, and every day, let's draw on and join up the dots in a positive way and connect through our common humanity to support each other with compassion and kindness. The third and final myth I'm going to talk about is mental health is a sign of weakness, something to be ashamed of. As I have highlighted, and if we accept that mental ill health is on a continuum, it is never too far away from either our own experience or those of our close friends, families and loved ones. Several years ago, on May Bank holiday, I received a phone call from my then 84-year-old mother. Independent, physically and mentally fit, an active grandmother, devoted to and doted on by her 2 grandchildren. On the call, she matter-of-factly told me, "Son, I'm not feeling well." Casually and without alarm, I asked if she has been to the doctor. "No, it's not that. Not that way." I don't know what it is. I don't know what's wrong with me. A long pause. Then she calmly tells me, "I can't take any more. I'm going to fill the bath and drown myself." Shocked into professional mode, I calmly told her not to do anything rash. I would be straight over and we could talk it through. Luckily, I lived nearby. I arrived at the house to be met with a grimaced face, eyes dancing, darting frenetically. The all too familiar look of someone gripped by an indescribable terror. The terror of the unknown. The terror of not knowing what is wrong or what to do. The terror of the unthinkable thought. Am I losing my mind? My immediate reaction was to give her a hug. I sat her down and asked how long she had been feeling like this. Unable to answer, she apologised and berated herself for being unable to answer or settle an agitated mind and body, simply pacing up and down the living room. I told her she should come and stay with us until we got to the bottom of it all. She agreed. However, her agitated mind and body came with her, compounded by the felt shame of the grandchildren. Seeing their grandmother like this was, for her, unbearable. Unable to either care for or keep herself safe, I took time off work and moved in with her. My sister came home from England and together we provided 24/7 support. Despite input from the GP, community mental health services and the family's genuine but hapless attempts to care for and console her, she rapidly deteriorated along the continuum. She refused to eat or drink, while used whatever energy she had to pace, while persecute herself with her newfound mantra. I'm terrified of living, and I'm terrified of dying. Physically frail and dehydrated, she was eventually hospitalised. Her body responded well, but her mind was slow to catch up, and the terror, despair did not abate. She was eventually stepped down with a community-based support programme. However, her proud, stoic, self-reliant and self-sufficient character, which had previously served her well, on this occasion worked against her. Unable to accept her loss of independence, and against the advice of us all, she dismissed the support. Despite support from the family and the neighbours, once again she quickly deteriorated. One evening, I received a phone call from my aunt, my mum's younger sister, advising a neighbour had phoned her. Mum had arrived at the neighbour's door in her night attire in the early hours of the morning, distraught and distressed. My aunt, although kind and considerate, was equally distraught, obviously embarrassed by her behaviour, which she felt reflected badly on the family. A follow-up meeting saw my aunt harshly criticise her sister's behaviour as unacceptable, forcibly demand, "Pull yourself together," with the thinly veiled message, "You should be ashamed of yourself," and merely adding to Mum's guilt, shame and distress. Things came to a head when Mum suffered a slight fall and broke her metatarsal. In a rare moment of light relief in the casualty department, we joke about her David Beckham injury. However, immobilised, she required 24/7 residential nursing care, which subsequently became her home for the final 4 years of her life. Something she always dreaded, and which saw me break my pledge. Friends, family visited and reported back how well she was doing. I visited regularly, and she remained gripped by fear, anxiety, and intense and unforgiving shame. She hated visitors and mustered all her energy to convey to them she was fine, but secretly told me she longed for a natural death. Aged 89, she was diagnosed with cancer, terminal. As we talked it through in the visitor's room of the residential nursing home, in a sleepy seaside town, tearfully, while slowly shaking her head from side to side, she asked quizzingly, "Why?" "Why has this happened to me, son?" I could only respond with tears before she quipped with her eyes smile, "Why would this not happen to me, son?" The acceptance that her suffering was neither personal nor reflected that she was either a bad nor a weak person, but the suffering is universal, part of the human condition, seemingly brought some relief. She died some 4 weeks later. At the funeral, there were the usual kind and comforting eulogies. However, no one mentioned her terrifying life-death struggle with mental health. I, of all people, remained silent, in honour of, or perhaps betraying her memory, silenced by my own and the family's implicit shame and stigma. My mother was an educator, a teacher, well respected in the community, and well known for her work with special needs and learning disabled children. She valued education, and she valued learning. The theme of this talk on World Mental Health Day is about the importance of raising awareness through learning, educating ourselves about mental health to dispel the negative stereotypes which isolate, marginalise and add to our suffering. When I was going through Mum's affairs, hidden behind a bookcase, I came across some of her personal writings. It was clear she had suffered for many years, but had denied and masked her struggles, silenced by a sense of shame which had stopped her asking for help and support when faced with the trials and tribulations of life, until it all became too much. Over each of our lives, from the cradle to the grave, we will inevitably, unavoidably face challenge and adversity, albeit some more than others, and most of it outside of our control. In response to these challenges, we will oscillate, move up and down, myself included, the mental health continuum. If you are currently at the low end of the continuum, be grateful for and celebrate your mental health, because be assured, at some point, you will creep further up towards a more moderate, more severe end. If you find yourself at the more severe end, don't let your mental health define you or others define you by it in a negative way. Remember, you are much, much more than your mental health condition. Just as someone moves up the continuum, you will move down and once again be able to enjoy and engage with life. Finally, wherever you are in the continuum, don't be silenced or isolated by perceived shame and stigma. Don't deny your suffering. Reach out for support as and when you need it. This is not a sign of weakness. It is a sign of strength, a sign of courage. Share your struggles and personal stories as I have shared mine. There is no shame in shedding a few tears. It's healthy and helps wash away painful emotions. Keep learning, keep an open mind, and above all else, keep an open heart. Suffering, whether it's your own or others, is bearable if you embrace it with kindness and compassion. On this World Mental Health Day, and on every day, let us celebrate our common humanity. Like it or not, we are all in this together. Thank you.